Okay, let's try and unpack this Manipur situation. It feels a bit like trying to follow a map where, half the roads are suddenly blocked off.
And the landmarks keep moving.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We've looked through the sources, and it's definitely complex. Twists and turns everywhere.
right. So our mission here for this deep dive is really to cut through some of that noise, try and figure out what's actually going on.
Exactly. Especially this big move on May 28th, 2025. That's key.
Okay, May 28th. What happened then? What was the big event?
Well, on that day in Imphal, a pretty significant group of MLAs, members of the Legislative Assembly, turned up at the Raj Bhavan.
The governor's place.
That's right. And they basically arrived saying, we're ready to form a government.
Wow, okay. That's quite a statement. But this isn't happening out of the blue, is it? There's a very grim backdrop to all this.
Absolutely not out of the blue. This is all happening under the shadow of these terrible ethnic clashes that have been tearing Manipur apart since May 2023.
Primarily between the Meiteis and the Kukis communities.
Yes, mainly. And the cost. It's just devastating. Over 250 people killed. And incredibly, more than 60,000 people still can't go home. They're living in relief camps.
60,000. It's hard to even grasp that number. And that ongoing crisis, that instability, that's why the state isn't currently being run by its own elected government.
Precisely. Manipur's been under president's rule since February 2025.
Which means the central government in Delhi is effectively in charge.
Correct. The previous chief minister resigned, and things were just too unstable, too fragmented politically to form a new government right away. So the assembly was put in suspended animation.
On hold?
Basically, yeah. There are 60 seats total, but one legislator passed away, so we're talking 59 active seats, but no functioning state government answering to them.
Okay, so the assembly's paused, which brings us right back to May 28th, Raj Bhavan. You said a group of MLAs. Who exactly was this?
So the delegation that actually went in to meet the governor, Ajay Kumar Balo, was made up of 10 MLAs. A specific mix 8 from the BJP, 1 from the NPP, National People's Party, and 1 independent. And they were led by a BJP legislator, Thokchom Radheshyam Singh.
But those 10 weren't just speaking for themselves, I gather. They represented a bigger bloc.
Exactly right. They were there speaking for a coalition, a group of 44 MLAs in total.
44. Okay, now that's a significant number. What's the makeup of that larger group?
And this is interesting. It breaks down like this. 32 Meitei legislators, 3 Manipuri Muslims, and 9 Naga legislators.
Right. So a mix, but dominated by Meitei MLAs.
Yes. And their core message to the governor was pretty straightforward. Look, we have the numbers. 44 out of 59 active seats. That's a clear majority. We're united and we're ready to form the government. Let's end president's rule.
44 out of 59. Yeah, the math is clear. That's definitely a majority. And didn't the Speaker of the Assembly sort of back this up? Confirm they were unified.
That's what seems to have happened. The Speaker, Raj Singh, reportedly met with them, individually as a group. And the word is, he confirmed their unity.
So Radheshyam Singh, the leader of the delegation, felt confident saying they were all on board.
He stated it quite clearly, apparently, said there was no opposition to forming a new government among those 44.
Okay, so they have the majority, they seem united, the Speaker apparently confirms it.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just stake the claim right then and there? What's the holdup?
And this is where it gets, political. Despite having the numbers and the local confirmation, they didn't formally stake the claim at that meeting.
Interesting. Why not?
They conveyed that the final go-ahead, the green light, really needs to come from the central leadership, from Delhi.
I see. So they present their case locally, but the actual decision-making power sits elsewhere.
Pretty much. The governor, Bala, listened, took it all in, and reportedly said he'd initiate actions in the best interests of the people, which is, standard official language, doesn't give much away.
No, not exactly a firm commitment or a timeline. So it's essentially a waiting game, dependent on Delhi's assessment. This really shows how president's rule centralizes power, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Delhi isn't just counting heads. They're looking at the whole picture. Can this group actually govern? Given the ethnic tensions, given their specific makeup, could forming this government make things worse, or could it stabilize things? It's a huge calculation.
A very high-stakes one. Now, you mentioned this push didn't come from nowhere. There were existing frustrations, obviously, but was there a specific recent event that kind of lit the fuse for this May 28th move?
Yes, it seems so. Just over a week before, on May 20th, there was this incident near a place called Gualtabi.
Tabi. Okay, what happened?
It involved a government bus, one of the Manipur state transport buses. It was heading to Ukhrul, which is predominantly Naga, for the Shirui Lily Festival, a big state event.
Okay.
And it was reportedly stopped by security forces. But the thing that really caused the uproar, especially in the Imphal Valley among the Meitei community, was the allegation that the security forces had covered up the bus's signage, the Manipur State Transport Park.
Covered it up. Why would that cause such a reaction?
Well, perception is everything, right? For many, this wasn't just about a sign on a bus. It was seen as a deliberate slight, an attempt to undermine Manipur's identity, its name, its pride, especially during a state festival, like hiding the state's own presence.
Wow. Okay, I can see how that could become a powerful symbol, even if it seems small on the surface. What was the immediate fallout?
It was pretty intense, particularly from influential Meitei civil society groups. COCOMI, the Coordinating Committee on Manipur Integrity, they reacted very strongly.
What did they do?
They called for civil disobedience. They even called for a public boycott of the governor.
A boycott of the governor? That's serious. Did they target anyone else?
Oh, yes. They explicitly demanded resignations. Top state officials, the chief secretary, PK Singh, the security advisor, Kuldeep Singh, and the director general of police, Rajiv Singh.
And the grounds for demanding their resignation.
Accusing them, basically, of undermining Manipur, its identity, name, pride, respect. So that bus incident near Gualtabi, it clearly tapped into much deeper feelings of resentment about how things are being run under president's rule and maybe who is seen to be running things.
So that anger definitely fed into the momentum for these 44 MLAs to say, okay, enough is enough, let us take charge.
It certainly looks that way. It was both a political calculation by the MLAs and, riding a wave of genuine public frustration.
But as we started off saying, forming any government in Manipur, it's not just about numbers or recent incidents. It runs right into the bedrock issue, the ethnic complexity.
It's the fundamental challenge. You have the Meiteis, mainly in the valley, the majority. Then you have the Kukis and the Nagas, primarily in the surrounding hill areas, each with distinct histories, distinct concerns, and now, tragically, deep mistrust after the recent violence.
Trying to get a government that everyone trusts, that represents everyone fairly, it sounds incredibly difficult.
It is. You used the analogy of a map earlier. Maybe it's like trying to get a cat, a dog, and a bird to happily share a small space. The potential for conflict is just inherent right now.
Now, this coalition of 44 MLAs, we said it's mostly Meitei, but includes Naga and Manipuri Muslim legislators. What about the Kukis community? They have MLAs too. Where do they fit in this picture?
They don't really, not in that coalition. The Kukis community is represented by their own block of 10 MLAs, and their perspective is fundamentally different.
How so?
Well, we know they held their own meeting earlier in May, on the 16th, down in Churchanpur, a major Kukis town, and they're planning more talks, apparently, in Guwahati. Their focus isn't on joining a Meitei-dominated government in Imphal.
What is their focus then?
Their core demand, which has been consistent since the conflict erupted in 2023, is for a separate administration for the Kukis areas.
A separate administration. That's a completely different path.
It is. They argue that after the violence, the breakdown of trust is so complete that they need their own administrative setup to ensure their safety, their rights, their future.
Which obviously clashes directly with the idea of a unified Manipur that many Meiteis, and likely the Naga groups too, strongly advocate for, preserving the state's integrity.
Exactly. So you have these two powerful conflicting currents, one pushing for a unified government led by the 44 MLAs, the other from the Kukis MLAs and community pushing for administrative separation.
And navigating this minefield is the governor, Ajay Kumar Bala. He came in just before president's rule, right? January 2025.
Yes, he's a former Union Home Secretary, so he has deep experience in security and administration, which was likely seen as necessary. During president's rule, he's the center's man on the ground.
He reports back to Delhi.
He reports to the president, but effectively, yes, to the central government, the Home Ministry. He receives the delegations, assesses the situation, and advises Delhi. But the ultimate decision, lift president's rule, allow this group of 44 to form a government, that decision lies in Delhi.
So beyond the political chess game, what's really hanging in the balance here? What are the true stakes?
The stakes are incredibly high. It's about finding a path back to peace somehow. It's about trying to heal a society fractured by violence and fear. And most immediately, it's about the future of those tens of thousands of displaced people.
Still in camps.
Still in camps, waiting for safety, waiting to rebuild their lives. Any new government, if one is formed, doesn't just step into office. It steps into a crisis zone, needing immense effort towards reconciliation, rehabilitation, and just basic trust building.
It sounds like an almost insurmountable task for whoever might take charge.
The challenges are monumental. You see how incidents like the Gualtabi bus flare-up show just how raw the nerves are, how easily mistrust can be triggered. Governance in that environment is incredibly fragile.
And that fundamental demand for separation from the Kukis community isn't something that can just be ignored or smoothed over easily.
Not at all. It represents a deep-seated political reality that has emerged from the conflict. It adds this huge layer of complexity that makes simple majority calculations almost secondary.
Okay, so let's try to wrap our heads around this. For you listening, what we're seeing is this definite push from 44 MLAs who showed up in Imphal on May 28 saying, "We have the numbers, let us govern."
Right. A clear move to end president's rule, but happening against this backdrop of over 2 years of devastating ethnic conflict, huge displacement, and really deep grievances. Plus, recent events like that bus incident near Gualtabi just pouring fuel on the fire.
And we've seen how complex the political maths is, beyond just the numbers. You have the different ethnic communities, Meiteis, Kukis, Naga, and crucially, the Kukis community, through their MLAs meeting separately in places like Thokchom, pushing hard for their own administration.
Which makes it clear, doesn't it? Having 44 out of 59 votes might be a majority in the assembly, but building a stable government that can actually unite Manipur right now, that needs way more than arithmetic. It needs trust, and that seems to be in very short supply.
So the ball is in Delhi's court. They have to decide whether to lift president's rule based on this proposal from the 44, all while the human cost keeps mounting, those thousands still displaced, the violence still a fresh memory since May 2023. It feels like walking a tightrope, as you said.
In a hurricane, maybe. Which leads us to the really big question, I think. Given how deep these ethnic divides seem, based on everything we're seeing, and with one major community actively seeking separation, can any single government actually bring Manipur together under one roof right now?
Or does this push by the 44, maybe unintentionally, just throw into sharp relief how fundamentally different the visions for the state's future are, leaving the path forward really uncertain, maybe even pointing towards a different kind of future altogether?
It really makes you wonder if unity in the way it was understood before 2023 is even achievable in the short term, or if the pressure is building towards something else entirely. A tough question with no easy answers right now.